Good afternoon, and thank the Tushar and the ICON team for this opportunity. So without wasting much time, I will just uh, go with my job. So my today's topic is for the prostate cancer, metastatic prostate cancer. So I will just like to go with the brief case which is presented. So our today's case is a 72-year-old man, retired bank employer with a 20-year history of hypertension, well controlled on medication, presented backache for 6 month duration. On examination, he had a mild tenderness, and PR examination felt there was a prostatic mass. On further workup, his PSA was 120, and the trust guided biopsy suggestive of a Gleason of 4+4. PSMA done, which was suggestive of extensive bony metastasis involving rib, skull, and femur. He was initially started on ADT, and after further workup and discussion, he was started on a docetaxel 75 in view of high volume disease. He was started on a docetaxel 75 mg per meter square for 6 cycles. He tolerated chemotherapy initial 4 cycle well. Then he developed febrile neutropenia after fifth cycle, which requires hospitalization and second line antibiotic. Then after discussion, the 5th cycle was stopped and the medical castration was continued. Then he remained well for around 1 year. His Nadir PSA was 1.94. He continued the 3-monthly leuprolide. Then after a 10-month period, he again complained of a new onset bony pain and loss of appetite. The repeat PSMA scan suggestive of a new bony lesion with PSA has increased. So after around approximately 10-month period, he had a recurrence of the disease. He received palliative artery to the spine, and further treatment options were discussed. He was not, since he had some complicated course with the first docetaxel therapy, he was not very keen for chemotherapy, and we started on tablet abiraterone with prednisolone with biphosphonate. Then he again responded well and continued for next 10 months. Then around after a period of 10 months, he again becomes symptomatic and PSA. This is the usual course in day-to-day practice what we get. So then again his PSA started rising, and then he was further discussed about the BRCA testing, and on the somatic BRCA testing, it was BRCA2 positive. The PARP inhibitor olaparib was discussed, offered, but due to the very high cost, he was not able to afford the same. So then the option of cabazitaxel again discussed, but he was not very keen for chemotherapy. So due to previous chemotherapy toxicities, so option of lutetium PSMA discussed, which was available, and then he received 3 cycle of lutetium PSMA with good symptomatic and PSA response, and he's doing well after that. So after a diagnosis, so it's around 2.5 years, he is symptomatically better with a reasonable good PS and quality of life. So summarizing, a 72-year-old male with a diabetic and a hypertensive history with a high volume metastatic CA prostate received docetaxel for 4 cycles, then developed a complication. Then chemotherapy stopped, ADT continued. After a 10 month, again had a progression of the disease, started on abiraterone. Around 8-10 months again, he did well. Then further progression, BRCA was positive, not affording for the same. Cabazitaxel offered, not willing for same, offered lutetium PSMA and doing well. So this is just in short summary of this patient. So for discussion, 3 boards are formed. Tumor board A, which has to decide the treatment for the same patient, but who can only afford the treatment under various schemes available, like a Mahatma Jyotiba Phule scheme, the Prime Minister, the PMJY scheme. Tumor board B has to decide the treatment on a affording patient of a geriatric age, which this patient fits into this population. And tumor board C has to decide the treatment for an affording patient with no comorbidity, but who is living alone, spouse has died and children are abroad, which is we are also seeing in a day-to-day practice. But I think at the end of this question, we have some discussion, and I would like to involve all 3 groups to give their opinion and what they do in their practice. Though there are certain things available on the guideline, but what we do in practice is sometimes different, and that suits to our need, not the guidelines. So for this tumor board A, that is the patient who is not affording but otherwise fit, what will be your first choice of therapy? So I will just go through the questions. In a high volume metastatic prostate, whether you like to give him the abiraterone acetate till progression, or enzalutamide, or docetaxel 75 mg per meter square for 6 cycles, or sometime docetaxel 50 mg per meter square for 9 cycle. And the latest in this HSPC setting, the PEACE-1 data, the combination of docetaxel laboratory is just emerging, and whether you would like to go ahead with ADT alone since the patient. So for a fit patient but not affording for any further therapy, what will be their choice? So I will discuss. So I think the format is a little bit different from the what the previous speaker had discussed. So I will just go to the question, then we will discuss each scenario and where we stand and how we practice this. The same question is for tumor board B, where the patient is otherwise affording, but because of the age, he might he has a hypertension, he has a diabetes. So what treatment will be? The options are same, what discussed previously. And for tumor board C, the patient is fit but don't have a supportive care. He lives alone. So what will be the choice? So I think we'll deal with this. And the second question will what we face in commonly practice, that if the patient has received the docetaxel in a hormone sensitive prostate cancer, how you will deal when the disease progresses, how you will deal that situation. So the options will be the re-challenge with the docetaxel when the patient becomes CRPC, if this time period is less than 1 year, or we offer abiraterone acetate or ENJA or Cabaji or lutetium PSO. So that means the patient has progressed over the docetaxel, and that this duration is progression of duration is less than 1 year. So whether you want to re-challenge with the docetaxel or you want to go ahead with the other standard option which is mentioned. Similarly for tumors ABC, the same questions post docetaxel progression. And the third question which I would like to you ask about the where you consider for a BRCA or HRM mutation testing in this in current management of a CA metastatic CA prostate. So do you consider in all high risk patients at the time of diagnosis or at the beginning of CRPC, or you consider HRR testing at the time of progression to metastatic CRPC after the chemotherapy and 1 line of hormonal therapy? Or do you feel that this is not very beneficial in our patient population unless they are affording for the PARP inhibitor therapy? So what is the place of this mutation testing in current scenario? Same question for EBC. And the last question, which is very oftenly discussed in the what is your practice regarding the low dose abiraterone with low fatty meal, whether you consider it in all patients, yes or no, or you consider only in patients who are not affordable for full dose therapy, you offer the low dose, or you feel that a standard of care can be offered to all patients who is not affording for the same. So I think these are the 4 questions, and my further discussion with each group will be in this same situation. So coming to the first line metastatic hormone sensitive prostate cancer, I think I will group, I think like to group the name, I just know who is in each group. So I think tumor board 1, Dr. Ghanshyam Biswas, who is I think the lead in this group. So what is your thought process for whenever you see a patient in the hormone sensitive prostate cancer, how you decide? Because if you go to the standard guidelines, these are all options available, and fortunately all are category 1. So how you decide your treatment in this way? And your group is a patient who is not affording for the high end therapy, and he has to be supported from this scheme or insurance, because we come across other patients that they will not get the insurance for oral therapy. If we give them some IV chemotherapy, they will get the reimbursement for that. So so in this patient and in general, so I will like to their opinion in this. Then we'll go to the group B and group C.
So ideally, we need an ADT. So that
yeah, ADT is the backbone. So that we all know that medical or surgical castration, that is still the backbone.
In group A, so where the resources are limited, so definitely the surgical form of a castration will be easier, the less follow-up.
Yeah, so we all know that in a patient, we still, even in affording patient, at least I personally prefer surgical orchectomy, because the compliance will not be a question, and the cost which the patient saves over the multiple cycles of the hormonal treatment. So generally that we prefer. So that is over.
So at this moment, like I have a darolutamide trial on a first line setting. So I tried my patients.
So clinicals, that is the best situation. If you have a clinical trial, the patient can fit, that is the best. But in a majority of the patient, this is not the situation. So then how you decide in general and this patient?
Yeah, so bilateral orchectomy and maybe a 3-4 weeks of at least a bioclutamide And if the patients, yeah, so
Do you still feel that after surgical orchidectomy, bicalutamide is required?
yeah, so initially, yeah, so to avoid the flare, yeah, we'll require.
Generally, we
Maybe
don't.
tweaks, yeah.
Generally, if we give a medical ADT, then we consider surgical orchidectomy because this cuts the testosterone very fast. Generally, we do not consider. If we give a LHRH agonist, then we usually consider. I think our discussion will basically on the high volume metastatic patient. So whether you will consider docetaxel or abiraterone or enzalutamide, and now the apalutamide has also the survival benefit among all these group of the patient, in a affording patient, in a non-affording patient.
Most of the schemes allows chemotherapy, so docetaxel can be given.
So in which patient population do you feel that the docetaxel patient might not be a fit for? So all patient in OPD might not fit for docetaxel. So how you take the decision whether to do docetaxel or not?
In that case, in a resource setting, so maybe a low dose of abiraterone can be tried. So
So
we
do
have
you-
tried in patients, yeah.
So do you think that the low dose abiraterone is because that data for that, they will discuss that in the subsequent setting. The low dose data is mainly for a CRPC setting. Can we extrapolate to the hormone sensitive prostate cancer? We don't know at this point of time. So we'll discuss later on. So if you see this slide, the hazard ratio for OS for whether you give docetaxel or abiraterone or any other, more or less it comes out to be more or less in the range of 0.6 to 0.8. So I think the most important thing in current era is the patient of a metastatic hormone sensitive prostate cancer, ADT alone is not the standard. What the second which you have to add, that will differ. So that question has practically closed. ADT alone is not the standard. You have to add something. Then the decision. So in your patient, you will like to, this patient, you like to go ahead with docetaxel or abiraterone?
Docetaxel, yeah, high volume disease.
High volume disease. And what about the doses?
Elderly patients, I use 50 milligram per meter square every 2 weekly, or if a fit patient, then 75 milligram per meter square every 3 weekly.
Yes, so I think I will go to the tumor board B, their preference of choice, and I think others can also pitch in the Chetan. What is your opinion and what do you do in practice?
Yeah, so we have a patient who is 70, who has a cardiac comorbidity in the form of a lowered ejection fraction, which is 42%, but the patient can afford reasonably everything. So yes, preference would be rightly ADT plus something, and docetaxel is always looked upon as a good standard. Fluid retention with docetaxel will be a concern with a 42% ejection fraction. So we'll have a word with the cardiologist and get his cardiac and antihypertensive medicines adjusted. And then if he can go for it, then definitely docetaxel. Maybe we begin at a lower dose, say 60,
So
and then go on with
in this
docetaxel.
patient with this 70 year and ejection fraction 40%, how comfortable you giving docetaxel?
I think
Reasonably?
we'll
I will
start,
scared
yes.
to give a docetaxel in this patient. I
If
think
it's ejection fraction only the issue, if otherwise his performance status is 0 or 1,
you would like to give 75 or 50 because 50
Maybe
is
I'll
not the
begin with-
standard.
I'll
50 is
begin with
in the
60.
CRPC setting. We extrapolate from the CRPC to the HSPC.
absolutely. I'll probably begin with 60 and then go on to escalate if he doesn't have problems.
Absolutely,
Dr.
sir.
Amit?
Even I start with a lower dose and then escalate on full.
But why not to offer, the data says that the efficacy, if you look towards that efficacy, everything comes to, then why to offer him? Can we offer him abiraterone or enzalutamide? Why, what is the preference
He
for
is not going
chemotherapy?
to get younger with time. Today he is 75, tomorrow he
So
will
I
be
think that is one
76.
point we have to keep in mind, that if we are planning, so when there is discussion, we have to discuss this, that if we are planning for chemotherapy, you are fitter at this point of time, you might not be fit for chemotherapy at that point of time when the disease progresses. So that is one point which goes in favor of chemotherapy. Yes,
There's
Sachin.
another issue that if he has comorbidities, how many tablets is he going to consume? And whether his compliance is going to be assured. If he starts missing on one of the tablets, either for the comorbidity or prostate, then your control is not assured. So it's easy. Docetaxel, I give it, I know that it's gone into his system.
And its treatment usually ends with a definitive period of time.
Correct.
Patient does not have to come for
Correct.
follow
So
up.
you can
And
stop
the
at 6 or 8 cycles.
other advantage which indirectly comes is the most of the time the insurance company covers that. So if the patient has insurance, he can get some that benefit. So I think so case to case basis we have to decide. But if the patient is not very keen for this, enzalutamide can be in better can be a choice. So I think what the opinion of the third group in this see tumor board C for this.
Hello.
So your patient is fit, but he lives alone. He does not have any
We have
social
a
support
patient
for
who
this.
is elderly, who has no comorbidities, lives alone and absolutely has no support, social support. So it will be, even though the first choice is docetaxel, in our situation, it looks difficult because the patient would not be that compliant to come to repeated cycles as well as monitoring of his blood counts, other blood parameters. So we would like to prefer abiraterone in this setting. He has no comorbidities, his blood pressure is controlled, no diabetes. So abiraterone steroid along with AD combination, I guess the patient will be more compliant with.
So I think the message is from all the group that all these docetaxel, abiraterone, enja, and aflibercept all have their pros and cons, and the patient selection depending upon their personal choice, their comorbidity, that will play into the picture. And all most of the time these all have. And the important message what I meant to say that even if we plan for abiraterone, it's not, we feel that abiraterone is a very safe drug, but if you closely look to the side effects of this, if you look to the, then we all know that Latitude and Stampede has one arm of the abiraterone. So if you carefully look to the side effects of this, the grade 3-4 toxicities in the Latitude and the Stampede is more than 50%. And most of the time we feel that it's drug which doesn't cause any side effect, but if you, and we have encountered in our practice also. So the, though the neutropenia, febrile neutropenia might not be a concern, but the hypertension, fluid retention, hypokalemia, liver enzyme dysfunction, the bilateral pedal edema. So even if we are planning for and with the 5 milligram prednisolone for a longer period of time, there might be a chances of patient developing some sort of endocrine dysfunction, especially the sugar metabolism. So we have to look towards that also, that these are though oral pills, but they are own associated bunch of the toxicities. So I think similarly the Stampede, what I discussed, that if you look to the data, most of the time the docetaxel and the OS just running parallel to each other. So as such, there is no survival advantage of one agent to the other. Ultimately, it's the decision has to be taken on the individual. So what I may want to discuss, that is there any subgroup of the patient where only ADT is you
So
consider?
no,
for
because you mentioned Stampede, I just want to be a radiation oncologist. If it's a low volume metastatic disease, please consider radiation to the primary also.
So that I have not. So there is a little bit catch in that the trial which was planned at that point of time, that have not included the hormonal therapy in that point of time. So that trial was a pure primary prostate radiotherapy in a low volume disease vis-a-vis the not radiotherapy. So whether if we are adding the hormonal therapy, we are doing in the practice. We also, when we start with the abiraterone, or even if the patient is fit, we consider for. So that is the one second discussion point. Do you consider ADT alone in any group of the patient? I will ask from group A, B, C. Is there any place of ADT alone in some patients, with the even patient presents with high or low volume? I think group A. Is there any place of ADT alone? So I think what if the patient is elderly, the life expectancy is not going to be beyond 5 or 6 years. Multiple comorbidity in some group of the patient, there is still an option. If the expected life expectancy is not there, then that can be one of the option in some patients.
So
So
we have learned from our earlier DM days. So when nothing was there, no, so we have given only ADT.
yeah, so
And-
I think.
and few of the patients have done well.
Yes, so I think the other important question comes the role of the chemotherapy in low volume disease. So how commonly or how frequently you consider, if you look to the data, the benefit of docetaxel based chemotherapy is not that, though the Stampede have taken this group of the patient. So I think I'd like to group A and B and C. Do you consider still the docetaxel based chemotherapy in low volume metastatic disease, or low risk if you go for a Latitude definition?
No.
No, so you only consider the some sort of hormonal agent.
Absolutely.
You can't. I think Dr. Chetan and Dr. Amit.
Same, sir. Low volume disease, let's not waste our weapons. So when he's symptomatic or gross tumor burden, then it's
But you like to consider abiraterone or enzalutamide in low volume cases?
Sir, with Latitude, it's better to offer ADT plus abiraterone. Minority of patient who has toxicity profile not compatible diabetic or something, then probably ADT alone. But no, Otherwise, CTT
Yeah,
plus abiraterone.
So I think Dr. Naveen is also, so is there any role of surgery anyway in a metastatic study? What are the specific situation where some sort of surgical intervention is required in a metastatic scenario?
Other than ADT means osteotomy, probably in fixing some spine fractures or something like that, but not much.
Yes. So I think if you look to the guidelines, there are some still there. This is one which I find in the, this is a JGO publication, which shows that the developing countries, they might have also considered doing the ADT alone in a low volume disease. In high volume disease, they have considered, but this was their own guideline, but people still consider hormone alone in a low volume. In a high volume disease, they can be considered. So the other question which comes into the day-to-day setting, what is the various definition, how commonly you use? So when you have to define a high volume versus high risk, which you consider in day-to-day practice, I would like to ask each group that when you deal a patient, you have to risk define. Do you take the latitude definition or you take a chartered definition for defining high volume versus high risk disease? And do you find really changing treatment as per that basis? Because this terms comes very oftenly in day-to-day practice. So which the chartered definition or a latitude definition of high risk, or this is just a definition, this doesn't matter much in day-to-day setting?
Yeah, the patient's clinical profile, the biochemical profile, that matters. So if you go by latitude or the Stampede one, so there is a difference, but in real life scenario, so you see, so we discuss the same issue in breast cancer also. What do you mean by visceral crisis? The same thing here. So that, so the clinical state of the patient, the performance status, and definitely the biochemical parameters that will help us in guiding the treatment.
I think Dr. Amit and Chetan, do you use this definition in practice? Mike is not.
Honestly, most of the times it's a mishmash of everything. We take a little bit of latitude, Stampede. So if you have a patient whose PSA is high, visceral mets, lymph node metastasis, more than 3 bony lesions with a good performance status and comorbidities taken into account, he is offered ADT plus whatever, chemotherapy in whichever form. So there is no I don't think in practice we have that hard and fast definitions. We usually take into account many other factors.
I think the
Sir, I think the chartered risk is easy to use. It defines it as four bony
easy to
mets.
remember also.
Yes, easy to remember. So most of the times end up using chartered risk.
And what
as-
about the for giving the local radiation? So which definition for a oligometastatic? I think this question for the radiation oncologist in the group. What definition you take for oligometastatic to giving the radiation to the prostate? So how much? 2, 3,
Say,
4.
What is explained by Stampede, so less than 5 bone metastasis?
So I
this is
think
what I'm saying.
so what I meant to say that these definitions are there in the book, but
Right.
in day-to-day scenario, we deviate it. So depending upon the patient situation, patient condition, we change this. And for oligometastatic, even that definition is not sacrosanct. Each group has taken differently. So we also consider take 5 or less than 5 as and then we usually repeat a scan after 6 months and see how the tumor is responding. If the metastatic has responded very well, then definitely there is a point of giving the local.
Another issue was Stampede was done where bone scan was done to see the metastasis.
Yeah, so
But
that's
now
a separate
we have
discussion.
we have
So,
PSMA
yeah.
which can detect
Yeah,
more bone
so
metastasis.
that's a separate discussion because all those trials have been done in those era where the bone scan and the CT scan used as a staging. If we are doing a PSMA PET CT scan, definitely we are overstaging the disease. But that is the real world life. We can't do a bone scan and a CT scan. I think everyone in this hall goes for a PSMA PET CT if it is available. And fortunately, it's cheaper. And now the NCCN has recently come up that this can be considered as one of the baseline investigations. So I think that we have to live with it. So I think this is another just slide that depending upon the various factors you have, so take the decision, the age, comorbidity, time commitment, oral versus IV, insurance cover, cost reimbursement, and then patient's factor, and then depending upon charted or latitude, define the group and then go for the therapy. So I think I will come to the next most discussed topic. So this is very latest data available from the ESMO 2020, the PEACE-1 data, where the investigator had combined the docetaxel with abiraterone in hormone sensitive prostate cancer. This is just released. So I will just like to take the opinion of the hall in that with, and if you look, so this in brief, it's a abiraterone plus radiotherapy. So it's a 4-arm study, abiraterone plus standard of care, and standard of care was defined ADT plus docetaxel. So patient, and if radiation therapy is required, that can be also considered. So it's a ADT plus docetaxel plus abiraterone versus plus minus radiation versus the radiation plus chemotherapy. So whether the addition of abiraterone in hormone sensitive prostate cancer in a patient who is fit for docetaxel improves the survival or not. So, and coming to the result of this data, if you see the median, the radiological progression-free survival, it is doubled in the standard of care, that where the abiraterone is not added, group where the abiraterone was added, it was doubling. So it's 2.2 to 4.5 with a hazard, whooping hazard ratio of 0.54. So do you think that this data is practice changing, and how comfortably are we? And fortunately, both these drugs are available in India, generic brand is available, and this data clearly shown the benefit. So from the group A, I'd like to know, will this change their practice in the this?
Yeah, obviously. So this is a practice changing, but if you look at the trial, the quality of life was also maintained. I don't know how. So if you use either of this drug alone, so at least 30% of the patient has some amount of toxicity leading to discontinuation. But the survival is astonishingly big. So this is definitely worth a practice changing.
I think from the group B, do you you want to consider this in day-to-day practice, the combination of docetaxel plus abiraterone?
Definitely, if you have a survival advantage which is doubled.
Yes.
In fact, in the last few years, I don't remember any intervention which has given doubling of survival,
yes.
and it is in years. Mind,
Yes,
it's not
yes,
a month.
yeah, yes, it's year.
2.2 years versus 4.5
Yes,
years. So we are
yes.
looking at a huge survival benefit. It will be very, very difficult to ignore this benefit. Having said
And
that,
what one good thing is that we will come into the picture early.
yes,
That is
definitely. A lot of patients, if I remember correctly, their PS was good because they still have some screening modality in place. If we start screening earlier, we'll probably have healthier and
Yes.
slightly younger patients, not those who are 70 plus. Those
Yes.
patients may be giving this combination
I
is
agree.
going to be a challenge. But if we have patients who are in their early 60s, this combination is not difficult to give.
Yes, I think group the board C, what's their opinion?
The data is really strong, cannot really ignore it. So considering the
Yeah.
immense benefit, definitely can try in those patients who can tolerate this combination.
So I think that's an important message from at least we are just eagerly waiting for the full paper to read about the nuances of, and I think it's so in patients who are fit, we should consider adding the abiraterone, looking to the magnitude of the benefit this paper. So I think this is the most important paper presented in ESMO 2021 with the follow-up data also. And look to the toxicity. When I look to the toxicity, I thought that, but if you look to the toxicity of both group, it has not increased that much as we are expecting into the day-to-day practice. So when we will use, then we'll come to know how comfortable we are delivering in this. But definitely it's a promise which has we have to see in the day-to-day practice. So coming to the chemotherapy in elderly patient with comorbidity. So how you approach? Do you use a geriatric, any sort of geriatric assessment when you are planning a chemotherapy in day-to-day practice? So because geriatric oncology coming in a big way, and fortunately or unfortunately, the patient we are seeing. So how commonly you use any geriatric form of assessment? Group A, B, C. Do you use any sort of geriatric assessment? Like in a surgical, there are various already tools are there. With, so in oncology, how commonly you use it?
So for radiation, we use G8.
You
G8, yes.
G8, and how comfortable and how you find it useful in the practice, depending on the changing the treatment or deciding the treatment on as per the at least in medical oncology, I think, do you use for deciding, or we go for our own gut feeling and decide the chemotherapy, whether he will tolerate the docetaxel or the other conventional method for deciding the fitness?
Yeah, frankly speaking, not using that.
Yes, I think that what I went that we are still not. I think Chetan and Amit, I think
Well, one thing is our latest DNB student is going to do a thesis which involves G8. So we'll be doing a lot of G8.
Yes.
But in real life, I agree that most of the times it's a combination of performance status, biochemical
Yes.
parameters.
So I think it's a high time for a medical oncologist to at least learn something about the geriatric oncology, and will, unfortunately in Tata, we are running a separate geriatric oncology. We're just trying to look into the question. I think group C, anybody in day-to-day in for radiation, just a fraction of, do you use any sort of geriatric assessment for, or
We do generally the assessment, but still if the patient has got good performance status, like what you said, radiotherapy has evolved in such a big way that we give hypofractionation so that we can reduce the duration of radiation. We can finish in 4 weeks also.
I think surgically can ask them also, do you use any sort of geriatric, it's not for prostate cancer in a day-to-day setting before taking any patient for surgery, some sort of assessment, or just we do as a gut feeling we decide?
We assess performance status along with
The conventional, but as such, no specific. Naveen? So I think it's just an evolving field, and we should, so this is one of the paper which, the other important aspect which just I mentioned, that the patient who are receiving ADT, they are now become a long-term survivor. So we have to look towards about the bone health, and very often we may miss in our BGOPD that we start ADT, patient will develop some sort of osteopenia and then will develop fracture and fall. So that is also an important, that patient, whenever we are planning this ADT, we have to look toward the affording, go for some DEXA scan and see the bone. And the next important is the drug interaction. Elderly patient will be on a multiple drug therapy. So before prescribing any treatment, you have to check the drug interaction, and that as a medical oncologist we are doing, but we have to be more. And coming to the, I think the last two topics, genetic testing in prostate cancer. So how commonly you do a genetic testing, that will be separately dealt in a molecular tumor board. I will just touch on that. So do you commonly do a genetic testing in prostate cancer patient? If yes, then when, and if not, then why? Genetic testing in prostate cancer patient. Do you consider routinely at the time of diagnosis, or?
At least in all CRPC, we counsel the patient. So if we counsel 10 patients, at least 3 or 4 does it. And hormone sensitive prostate cancers, so high risk patients, so definitely counsel again. So most of these patients go for a germline. So only in a trial setting, as I said, with Darolutamide trial, so where we are doing the somatic also on a HRR on the tissue.
I think Amit and Chit.
Hello. All CRPCs, since I belong to the affording table, so all CRPCs, BRCA mutation and HRR.
At what time you consider? At what time?
On CRPC, not at time of diagnosis, because that is the time I can act on thing. So yeah.
I think
Or a young prostate cancer is there.
Most of our patients are not really in the affording category, but definitely in all CRPCs in an affording patient who would eventually also
So
afford the therapy.
my question will be that if the patient is not affording for PARP inhibitor, do we still go for a testing if that costs around 10,000-15,000?
No,
So
As per the latest NCCN recommendation, every metastatic
that
castrate
we,
resistant-
so but
with
if we are
lethal-
not going to offer the PARP inhibitor, are we really justified doing
Sir,
a test?
I
and-
want to make a point there that as per the recommendation, any patient with Gleason more than 7 should be done. And if it might, this genetic testing may not be of help to that particular patient. But if it comes out to be positive, then maybe the family can be screened and counseled.
I think that's
So-
that's a separate, and we have on the only caution or message I should go for a genetic counseling before going for a genetic, because if you have not can, and I have faced once this problem. So we usually send to our counselor and then go for germline testing, because that will have a different implication. So I think that is the message, that go for a genetic counseling before
yeah,
going
so-
for a
But I
germline.
mean, so there is a caveat to this also, because somebody who is BRCA positive may not be affording for PARP inhibitors, but you have run out of options. So now cabozantinib is already there, okay. But at times we add platinum. So when we are running out of options, so that helps.
So that you can give the platinum without that. Why you need a PARP inhibitor to see? You give 1 or 2 cycles, you get the response. That means he's responding continue. So what I meant to say, that though BRCA is available and HRR is available, we have to be little bit careful unless the cost comes down. And we know that cost will come down in when the generic comes, definitely. Like Abiraterone, we started with the 1 lakh and now it's 8,000. So I think at that point of time, but still those who are affording should consider. And I think this is the positive data. The only discussion both RPFS, the clear cut benefit in terms of this. The only point which I want to discuss that sometimes we offer the HRR, the whole gene testing. And then we know that the BRCA2 responds well. So if in that whole HRR group, if we find that ATM is positive, do you still want to? So that is the problem. At least I usually avoid sending all, because if the ATM comes out to be positive, though the benefit is not very well, then why you send that? So do you go for a BRCA1, BRCA2 ATM or whole HRR gene panel in this? Because the olaparib is approved from that point of view. So that's what I want to
Because
discuss.
now the companies support, so that HRR includes everything from the, especially the Zydus, and they have shown that Lucapari is even more sensitive to the RAD5 group. That the Triton trial.
If you remove the company support in a day-to-day setting, do you want to go for a
So
full?
how can, so we are living in this world, so that is a part and parcel now.
So I think group B, but you go for a BRCA1, BRCA2 ATM or whole full HRR gene panel.
For going to the full HRR panel, especially when the therapeutic implications are there.
Yeah, at least the data. So what I counsel that there is a data available. So go for a full, but we have to discuss with the family that this ATM has come, which might not be that effective. That you have to say that this mutation might not respond that well compared to the other. So with a caveat, you have to start the olaparib, that though the data is available. So that's what I meant to say that. And I'm coming with the just last low dose abiraterone. So that is another hot topic. So I will ask whole three group. This is a very hot and burning question. Do you practice low dose abiraterone in your day-to-day practice or not? No, yes, or in selected cases?
Yes, in selected cases.
Group B?
No, never. Why do you need to do it? It's the cost is not an issue.
I think it's a
So why do we
controversial
need to do
issue.
it now?
So in Tata, that would depend on group C. What do you consider low dose or standard dose, or in selected cases low dose? Yes.
A standard dose only, selected cases only if there is affordable. So right now, no, there is no issue of affordability also, since the cost is also, so standard dose. as
Yeah, I
of
think
today.
Chetan wants to
So
say
I have a
something.
question. Is there any data to suggest that
Yeah,
low
but
dose is
that-
better
that's what
than
yeah.
standard dose?
So I
if
think
that
that-
data is there, yes.
Yeah, so I think that is this was a JCO publication in 2018 publication. So the most important thing is that they have defined the low dose with 250 mg with low fat meal. So the question which I used to ask myself, what will be the low fat meal in our scenario? When you look to their diet, it will have a avocado, it will have a burger and all that. So our patient population will not fit into that group. Our patient population eats the idli, dosa, and that the dietary style varies from region to region. The Maharashtra it will be different, South will be different. So that is the most difficult question in my mind. What then patient will ask, what should I eat in that? So that is one question that ultimately it will depend upon the calorie and the fat in that diet. So that has to be defined, that this much of calories should be provided by fat and all that. So that is one question. Second is that even this trial was the primary endpoint was the PSA response. And we all know that in all the randomized trial of a drug approved either abiraterone or enzalutamide, it was not only the PSA, it was the radiological progression-free survival. So does the PSA is a surrogate marker? Probably no. There are other markers. The radiological progression-free survival is the best method to assess the drug efficacy. It's not the PSA. And we have seen in the day-to-day practice, sometimes patient might not get any benefit with the disease may progress. So that is one other point, that the PSA was taken as a response. And third important point was that when they studied the abiraterone level, the drug level, they found that there was no difference in the PSA response, but abiraterone concentration was higher in the standard arm. So that was it. And finally, the paper also concluded that the additional studies are indicated to assess the long-term efficacy of this approach. So I think in a patient who is affording, the cost is a constraint. And as Chetan was saying, 8,000 definitely is not very, very cheap if we are looking for a 2-3 year time period. But in selected patient where the cost is going to constraint, we can use this in a.
So not only the cost, so I had a patient, elderly patient, so with abiraterone every time he had a hypokalemia to the extent of 1.5. So when he recovered, so after 2-3 episodes, so I put him on 250. So over a year, there was no issues with hypokalemia. So this certain.
So that individual we do in our practice, we found that. So that, and this is very important. You point about Okay, abiraterone is not a just tablet. You have to be careful. These are associated with, these pills are associated with its own toxicity. So definitely the message for the low dose that if patient is avoiding, go for full dose. And in Tata, we are running a trial looking to the other harder endpoint. Then we'll come to the answer of this question whether low dose is as good. And the answer will be for CRPC setting. We don't know for the hormone sensitive. So in hormone sensitive prostate cancer, definitely I don't consider low dose. In a CRPC setting, case to case basis, we can reduce the dose. This will just, I think time is over. I will just run. So how frequently you do the radionuclide in your setting? But last 2-3 minutes. So radionucleotide therapy, how frequently you consider and what point of time of treatment you consider a radionucleotide therapy? A, B, C, I think, Ghanshyam.
Yeah, extensive symptomatic bony meds. So
At what time? So you want to give docetaxel, cabazitaxel, abiraterone, enzalutamide at the end, or with this data, even after patient has received 1 line of therapy, hormone therapy, 1 line of chemotherapy, then, but I meant the place.
Yeah, so normally we offer them when we are lost out of options, but that's not the right way now, because our thinking is that once these patients are exposed to radiation, they may not be a candidate for any chemotherapy because of bone marrow probably suppression. But those patients who have received earlier, so they have actually benefited.
So I think group B.
Limited life expectancy is also one important parameter. With
So
less
do
than
you want
6
to,
months.
so patient has received docetaxel, abiraterone, and now has fit for cabazitaxel, or do you want to consider at that point of time, you want to give cabazitaxel, keep this reserve for next progression?
Yeah, if this patient had extensive super scan, we can say. So these patients are benefited.
So traditionally, I will keep it post cabazitaxel, but
Yes, I think that what I want to discuss, that even we used to keep it, but with this data availability, things
Yes.
may change.
Things
With
may
thi-
change.
Yes, so we may consider for considering this therapy even post 1 line patient, post 1 line docetaxel or abiraterone, and then we can consider for. So this trial has changed at least the way we approach the radionucleotide therapy in day-to-day practice. I think group C, what's your opinion for this?
Chemo failure, it's better to go, and if symptomatic bone mets, go for lutetium PSMA.
Yeah, I think there's a standard. We all know that this has definitely, but Vision trial, this is a phase 3 randomized trial. So initially, what I discussed, we used to consider it last, but with this availability, if patient is not very keen, we consider cabazitaxel early, the lutetium PSMA early, and keep the other option if he's remain fine. So I think with this, the last thing is that now the prostate cancer is a problem of too many. What to offer? So as a medical oncologist, we have to be more judicious, because now if you look to the survival data, OS for this metastatic HSPC, in one of the studies, it's 72 months. So it's around 6 years. The metastatic sensitive prostate cancer, if treated properly, they will survive for 7 years. So we have to be more judicious and more careful, so that patients should get benefit of each of the line of the therapy. So this I will just thank, and I will thank all my panelists for this great discussion, and hope we had learned something in this. Thank you. Sorry, I just missed. I think Dr. Vineet is online, and he's a very dear colleague and deals with the genitourinary malignancy. We'd like to take his opinion on this. Dr. Vineet.
Yeah, Amit, very nicely you have highlighted all the factors which you have discussed, and I will just touch upon the key issues. Key issues is that what we have nicely discussed is that ADT alone is not the panacea. ADT plus X is the standard of care, and X, we have a plethora of choices we can choose. That is one. Germline testing, it is a standard of care. We have to do the germline testing in all metastatic prostate cancer patients. Third is the high volume and low volume definitions. Well, the Chartered trial is the standard in which more than 4 bone mets you take it as a high volume disease. And even if it is a high volume disease, then in that case also docetaxel and abiraterone can be interchanged, because as far as the Stampede trial, even in all comers, abiraterone, when it was given, it had survival benefit in these patients. And the fitness of the patient is very necessary, because that will decide the choice of drugs. If abiraterone is there or enzalutamide is there, you have to abiraterone, you have to see whether the steroids are given for a long term. It has its own problems, hyperglycemia, transaminitis, hypokalemia. Cardiac toxicity is very important, which some of our colleagues they miss, but we see in our practice that these patients come with cardiac toxicities when you're giving albuterol. So you have to be very, very careful. Seizures and hypertension and fatigue when the patients are on enzalutamide. And lastly, the low dose albuterol. That is again a contentious topic, but two issues. One is that it has to be in the metastatic CRPC setting only. That has to be emphasized. And second is, as Dr. Amit had very nicely mentioned, it is only the PSA level which had been mentioned as the sheet anchor or the cornerstone of the trial study, whereas in the conventional trial, it is the RPFS which is there. So I think the last word has not been said of that. So I think with that, I thank the organizer again and thank Amit for a very nice and interactive discussion.
Thank you, Dr. Vineet. Thank you.